and it's a great honor to welcome Long Long to Q Now. How are you?
Good. How are you, Tom?
I'm not too bad. You know what? I really wish you could be here because I don't know if you can. Can you see the piano behind me there?
Yeah, you have a beautiful studio.
So that is Glenn Gould's practice piano. That's what he practiced on.
Yeah, I remember. I was actually in that studio before because I know that, I mean, obviously my favorite recording of Goldberg is the Glenn Gould one. So I was in the CBC radio station trying to get some great inspiration from him.
Dude, what do you get from that? Like, I know you played Gould's Steinway at the National Arts Center in Ottawa a little while ago. Do you feel something when you sit down at a piano that someone like that played?
I mean, obviously, I watched so many videos of him, especially for the Goldberg Variation. I watched so many times. And when I touched his instrument, it reminded me from his video. And it's really getting closer, with that sound of the instrument.
Why was now the right time to do the Goldberg Variations?
I've been working really long time because when you have a recording like Glenn Gould, I mean, we all get scared, to have to have such a incredible level, and it just will be really ridiculous if I do something which even myself will not satisfied. So I have to really study the piece as long as I can. So I did, as a 10-year-old boy, listening to Glenn Gould play on the record, obviously, and then so until 37. So 27 years of preparation, and I think I really need it. Particularly, I have to learn the Baroque way, the Baroque style of playing.
What's the difference between? Tell me a little bit about the difference between the more like the way you would normally play and the more what you had to do in order to play the Baroque style of Bach's music.
Sure. For example, like when I was 10 years old, I listened to Glenn Gould recording, and some of the passage he played almost like a sound like a harpsichord or like an organ, Baroque organ, and obviously he put a lot of personal interest and personal interpretations into the work, but still. You feel that he totally observed everything with the Baroque style in order to make, his own rendition in the highest level. And for me, the first thing to starting working is on the ornamentations on the harpsichord to make sure that I get more authentic French and Italian style of ornamentations doing the Baroque style. And then, trying to figure out how to connect from the harpsichord and also the Baroque organ with the feet, obviously. The performance not only in the hands, all the bass lines are played by the feet. And how to connect that to the modern piano. And also to put like 30 individual characters out of this piece. And also to have this connection between each one. Within the 9 canons as the basic structure of the piece. And then the really challenge is the variation 25, what we call the Black Pearl. I mean, it's the most kind of sad and tragic and painfulness and struggling passive piece. And that piece really take me kind of a long time to work on. But one thing I have to say that because when you hear the late version of Glenn Gould in 1981's version, he played many passages very beautifully and very slowly. And this is fantastic because when you have more time, you can really work on all the details like in a more precise way.
It was hard not to take some meaning into the fact that you were hurt a couple of years ago, back in 2017, you hurt your left arm. It was an injury that we thought, and a lot of people thought, and I'm sure you thought might mean you never get to play again. It was hard not to take some meaning that...
I was never thought that it was an inflammation. I mean, that just takes some time to heal. It was not a not a nerve problem or something.
Sure, but I heard you say in an interview a long time ago, you were like, my God, my biggest fear is something happening to my body. My biggest fear is something happening to my arm. It must have been so scary. That's what I mean.
It was scary, but I know it from the very beginning. It's a matter of time.
So when you come back from this, you record the Goldbergs like that. It was hard not to take some meaning from that. You know, that you're back at the piano and you're taking on this legendary piece.
Yeah, I mean, I think no matter what I'm going to take it, whether I had this period of time of reflection or I don't have it, I have to, record the Goldberg. I always wanted since when I turned 30 years old. Every year I was talking to myself, I have to do this every year. But then, finally I made a decision after also 3 years of working with a great harpsichordist, Andreas Steyer from Germany, and so then I feel much more closer, to the style. And then I listen to both recordings of Glenn Gould, and then I feel, I got more, kind of answers why he did this or that, and especially sometimes he does very dry sound, and sometimes you feel is that a little bit too much of that kind of a real dry sound? But it's actually worked perfectly with the distant harpsichord. It's the same sound. It's perfect.
Because I should say for people listening to this, the harpsichord does not have a sustain pedal the way that the piano does. So that once you hit the note on the harpsichord, the note happens and it quickly disappears. I want to take a listen to your take on the Goldberg Variations.
Sure.
That's a bit of the Goldberg Variations by Johann Sebastian Bach, performed by my guest Long Long. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
It's a beautiful interpretation of that. That's the version you did in studio. There's another version you did in a church in St. Thomas Church in Leipzig in Germany, where Bach worked, where Bach is laid to rest. What made you want to go there, and what did you feel when you were there?
I feel I was extremely connected to Bach's soul in that church. Somehow I feel he's still alive. And I also played his Baroque organ. I played some part of the Goldberg and also like toccata to feel, Bach's time sound. And also the echo in the St. Thomas Church kind of brings back bring us back to the time where Bach was composing a lot of his cantatas, and then when I was playing at the piano, he's next to me. His grave was next to the piano, and so I can literally, not feeling his heartbeat, but I'm feeling my heartbeat. But somehow I got so emotional, especially playing to the 30th variation, which is like the family reunion songs, and I found that I almost kind of thought about the entire journey of learning Bach since when I was 4 years old, playing his minuet, and then the 2 or 3 part you mentioned, and then to the French suite, the English suite, and then bel temper clavier, and then eventually, obviously, the Goldberg Variation. So the whole journey is kind of a starting, appear in my mind, and I got so emotional. I started crying a little bit. It was so moving, that moment.
It's funny. I think about the Goldbergs in a way that it feels like there's abstract art all around the world, but there's 2 or 3 pieces of abstract art that reach everybody somehow, and we're not entirely sure how it does it, but everyone seems to get it and everyone seems to know it. Bach, who can be, it sounds so logical and it sounds so technical, but I do see it sometimes as being very abstract. There's something about the Goldbergs that reaches everybody, and I'm not entirely sure what it is. What is it that's so special about that composition?
It's really mainly thanks to Glenn Gould. Obviously, this piece is certainly the highest level piece. But before Glenn Gould's interpretation, not so many people respect this piece as this level. This piece often said about the sleeping piece, lullabies, But when Glenn Gould made the rendition, he made it almost like Baroque orchestra, like a Baroque opera. He made it, into the most dramatic approach, and which totally opens up the dimensions of Baroque period. And this is something that's quite important. And because of that, now we all come in, to look over to this gigantic piece with a very fresh-eyed, and to also to be very brief, to do a lot of very creative, emotional interpretations based on the Glenn Gould one. So in a way, we are really grateful to Glenn Gould because of him. We get closer to Bach into in another style of playing.
So what do you do then when you come into this and say, like, I'm so inspired by Glenn Gould and I've watched these videos and I've sat down at the piano, but you obviously want to make it your own.
Yeah.
So what
I do like to make my own, but still, I mean, it's like we have to know the giant's work. We have to know the best of the interpretation first in order to make some new ideas out of it. And so in a way that I studied very carefully with both of Glenn Gould's recording. But obviously, for when I perform, I do develop something quite personal, which I always trying to put some of a very personal approach into whatever music I play, whether Rachmaninoff or Chopin or Mozart. And in this case, it's Bach. I have to, because otherwise I don't feel 100% in and 100% connected. So I have to put some of my personal colors, personal touch, personal dynamics, and so this is quite a normal. Yeah. But in any case, we have to learn from something really unique, and that's the Glenn Gould version.
My guest is Long, the pianist who recently released his version of Bach's the Goldberg Variations. I want to play another piece of music for you right now. This is not Glenn Gould. Take a listen to this. That is Franz Liszt's Hungarian Rhapsody No. 2. Better known maybe to my guest Long as the theme from the Tom and Jerry cartoon, the Cat Concerto. Can you tell us the significance of why we're playing that for you?
Yeah, I mean, I was 2 years old when I heard Tom and Jerry playing the Cats Concerto, which is actually Liszt's Hungarian Rhapsody No. 2. And I got so inspired. I had a little piano next to the TV, so I watched the big piano in the TV, and I look over into my little piano, and I thought maybe this is the grandson of the big one. So I started to imitate Tom. I even got his tuxedo, and that was like my little birthday gift. And I was so into cartoon, and so because that time the cartoon always had the classical music and jazz music kind of perfectly matched with all the motions, and that was so fascinating for me to see how music influenced the pictures.
And look at what that did. I mean, that wasn't a classical recital you saw on TV. That wasn't a recording of an orchestra in Berlin that got you. It was a piece of music from a TV show, and I find it really meaningful because I feel like that's kind of you. Like you try to get classical music to as many people as you possibly can, no matter the media in which you're going to do it. I mean, look at the Long International Musical Foundation. It's all about music accessibility. It's about music education. How did how you grew up in music inspire you to do this kind of work?
Yes. So for me, I always had a wonderful mentors to direct me into a different kind of a style of playing, and they always have been very inspirational. And many of my teachers, many of the musicians were helping me with all their heart. So in a way that we have to give back from what we have learned from the past. And also I realized, for learning music, you have to be very communicative. You cannot be just, kind of writing like a textbook, because this is almost like learning a language. You have to use it. If you don't use that language, it doesn't ring the bell. So therefore, I believe in the music education, we have to be as, let's say, animated as possible, as fun as possible, as joyful as possible, and to always share our thoughts rather than, kind of hiding something in some corners, of our mind, and to not share and to just keep for ourselves. I think music need to be heard. And this is something that music is always healing our heart. But if you don't talk about it, that will never really becomes the facts.
What does it do? Like, what does it do for a young person to get into classical music now?
I think, we're just trying to get them into music in general.
Right.
In many of the schools, like in North America, but sometimes because in the music education, in the very beginning, it's almost everything is kind of from the classical music scales, C major scales, A minor, and then you hear a lot of beautiful classical songs, and then you probably do other things. Now you have the EDM, you have hip hop, and the big range of music. But somehow it's all start from classical music, and somehow it's all start from piano, let's say, or guitar. So the more you know about classical music, it's actually good for you, not only playing classical music, but it's good for you with other subjects. And when you remember a lot of notes, it's very good for you in mathematics. When you play very emotionally beautiful piece, then it's very good for you to write a beautiful novel. So in a way, it's all connected. And when you hear something you feel so dreamingly with, then you draw everything into a beautiful painting. So that's what I think the importance of music education. You have to kind of connect with music to everything. It's all around.
We have another clip. Take a listen to this.
I can't remember anything. Can't tell if this is true or a dream. Deep down inside I feel the scream. This terrible silence stops me. Now that the war is through with me.
That is you living every 14-year-old stoner in their parents' basement's dream and playing with Metallica right there, by the way.
They're great. They're really exciting people.
What do you get out of playing with musicians like that? I mean, I can see the relation between classical music and metal, especially. I know a lot of heavy metal guitarists who end up learning Bach, especially who end up trying to learn fugues with two hands and stuff like that. But what do you get out of performing with people like that outside of your world?
I mean, first of all, they were extremely exciting. When you play with them, you're like flying high. And it's almost sometimes I feel in some classical music, like Rachmaninoff Third Piano Concerto, or like a Bartok Piano Concerto, or like a Prokofiev Sonata. It's almost heavy metal, and so. But obviously, we have to put the piano, a kind of a real loud speaker. you have to go wild, obviously, with the heavy metal. Yeah, but what I got is their extremely energetic way of making music, and that is also quite a encouraging, of even where we would do a lot of classical music repertoire. But for the piano part, there's some music, as I mentioned before, it has a heavy metal side. Of course, like when you do Liszt piano etude, it's almost sound like a kind of a early heavy metal, romantic heavy metal. Yeah.
But I feel like it's all part of you not being afraid to step outside of what classical musicians typically do, which is, play classical music recitals for classical music audiences. You're not afraid to go on Jimmy Fallon's show and play like the chopsticks into the Mozart, into the Maple Leaf Rag. You're not afraid to play with Metallica or play with Pharrell. And I know that has come with its share of criticisms from the classical music community. How do you navigate that?
I mean, look, so that's why we have to balance. So that's why for me, the most of the time I'm playing a classical recital because I am a classical pianist.
Yeah.
And so, we have to do the serious stuff like Goldberg Variations and Mozart concertos and Beethoven work. And that's what we do anyway. I mean, that's like 90% of what I do every day. Yeah, but then, sometimes we have to also know what's the new generation is like, what their taste. So then we also should tasting some different taste of music. Yeah, but we always come back, I always come back to play classical recital. I mean, this is my profession, and I know this is my forever profession. I don't want to mess up with, the traditional style of playing.
Well, why do you think people are so sacred about it? Why do you think people can be so worried about it? That when someone like you goes and plays with Metallica, why do you think it bothers people so much?
I don't think it bothers everybody. I mean, maybe there's some people they only want to listen to only classical music, which is also great. I mean, it's, but for me, I'm just trying to bring more youngsters into classical music, and I think I got a lot of young people interested to listen to Bach after they see my collaboration with musicians not from classical music genre. So for me, I want to broaden up the classical music circle and to invite more newcomers to listening to classical music and to come into the concert hall. And I was very fortunate in many of my recitals, classical recitals. A lot of people came to me and they say this is their first piano recital. So I feel very proud of that. Yeah.
There's very few piano recitals happening right now, though, because of the pandemic. How are you holding up not being able to be on stage?
It's quite a nightmare. Yeah, but I'm trying to to play some short things on social media, to always showing some of my new repertoire of learning and to share with my audience. So I mean, in a way that of course we all miss stage, but in the same time we're still practicing and still work on the new pieces. So when everything is hopefully when everything finishes, the bad things finishes, I can go back with a lot of new pieces to perform for you.
What do you miss the most about it?
It's just somehow the action on stage. It's this coronavirus really made us more united as musicians because we believe stage is really our best home. There's nothing can replace the stage, and nothing can replace the live concert.
I would agree with you there. We're out of time now. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, hopefully
all the best to Canada.
We'll hopefully see you in Toronto soon. You can play something on that. Wouldn't that be great?
Sure, of course.
I'm looking forward to it.
Okay.
Thanks so much, Long.